Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today is February 19th, 2024. Wanted to make a video talk a little bit about authentication. I continue to get emails from various well-intended, well-meaning people saying, hey, is this the real Charles Hoskinson? Hey, somebody contacted me over LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter and is talking to me, and I don't know, is this really you or not? And so I intended to make a video that you guys can share as a reference video, first on how to authenticate me, and also where we're going in the world of authentication. And hopefully this provides some value in trying to establish real Charles from fake Charles. So first, as a rule of thumb, unless I have a specific reason to contact you, 99% of the time, if somebody's claiming to be me, cold calling you, it's probably a scam. So I have an enormous degree of skepticism if suddenly there's a video of me or there's me contacting you from a social channel, almost certainly it's a scam. But let's talk a little bit about public key cryptography, because I do have a means of actually sharing with you guys information and authenticating that it is actually me. All right, so here's my whiteboard. And generally speaking, in the world of cryptography, we use something called public keys, public key crypto. And public key cryptography is all about basically having two artifacts. You have this concept of a public key, and you have this concept of a private key. And they rely on an idea that there's a very hard mathematical problem where you can go one way. So if you want to go from private key to public key, that's fast and easy. But if you want to go from the public key to the private key, this is mathematically hard. And when we say hard, generally speaking, we say so hard that it takes all the time in the universe to do. All time in universe. So the granddaddy of them all is RSA, and this is the basis of PGP. Stands for Pretty Good Privacy, which was created in 1991 by Phil Zimmerman. And it was maintained by many different people, including Hal Finney, who was one of the early pioneers in Bitcoin. But basically, what you do is you bind. I hate it when that happens. Excuse me for a second. Zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. There we go. So the Wacom tablet does that. So what you do is you bind an identity to a public key, and then you use the private key to authenticate. And basically how this is typically done is you would do something like a challenge response. Protocol. So there's a one-way and there's a two-way for this. So a two-way would be where you have Alice. Here's Alice. And then you have Bob. And Alice submits a challenge where she'll encrypt something with the public key of Bob, message, and then Bob can decrypt it. Ciphertext of M. Okay. And then she gets back the original message that she sent. So that's kind of your two-way. It's an interactive protocol. Okay, well, the only person who can do that is Bob, because the only person who will have the private key is Bob. And Bob can share that public key with everybody in the world, and only he can unlock it. Now, a one-way is where you do something else, and that's what we're going to do here. So Bob is going to produce the proof himself, And that proof is something that Alice can verify and say, oh, yeah, that looks good. I think that that's reasonable. So let's actually do that. So I'm going to take a message. So here is Cleopatra. Cleopatra is a certificate management, and it contains 2 of my private public key pairs. It contains my personal email key, which I've used since 2013. And you'll see a fingerprint right there associated with the key. And then it uses my work key, which I've used actually since 2016. And if you actually take a look at the details of this key, you can see that it is a RSA 4K key. When it was created, the email it's associated with, and what's called a fingerprint, which is basically just a hash of this giant key. Well, hang on a second here. You guys have actually seen this before. And let me show this to you. You have it right here. So right here, right next to King of the Rats, you have this nice key right here. That's the fingerprint. So I put that on there to authenticate the key and remind you guys that that is actually my key. And here's the actual public key block. Okay. So what I'm going to do, in going back to the screen here, is I'm actually going to sign a message. So this is the one-way proof. And so we're going to say something like, hello world. Now, what's going to happen under the hood is it is going to take this piece of text, it's going to manipulate it a little bit, and it's going to generate a cryptographic proof based on my private key that if you have the public key, you can verify that it's correct. So when we click and sign it, and what I'm going to do is stop sharing the screen real quick. Okay. And I'm going to go and share the screen again. Wow. Okay. So just succeeded in signing. And this is the cryptographic proof that is associated with this message. So you take this message and you basically hash it and you sign the hash with the PGP signature. A little bit more going out under the hood according to the standard, but that's basically what's occurring. So you can have an arbitrarily large amount of text, and I'll just to prove that, we can show you. So hello world, I enjoy long walks through the beach. All right. On the beach. All right. And we'll have proper grammar. There we go. Sign it. All right. You notice how this actually changes. Oopsie. Copy paste this because it actually double signed the message text with it. There we go. All right. So this is the proof there. So when we go back to our little image right here, basically I write the text. So I have my text. We hash it, and then we sign it. Okay. Now, this hash and signature with text gets transmitted to Alice, and then she can verify that if she has a copy of my public key. So we go back here. That is this right here, where I click on export. If she has a copy of that, she'll be able to actually check that through an algorithm. So Cleopatra can do it. In fact, it can be as simple as pasting it in the notepad and then click verify notepad. And she'll say, hang on a second here. Yeah, I have a copy of that key. I trust that key. This is absolutely valid. This came from Charles Hoskinson. As a corollary, if you wanted to ever verify Satoshi Nakamoto, who is the real Nakamoto, there is an actual PGP key associated with Satoshi Nakamoto. Let's check it out. So if you go to Google and you type in Satoshi's PGP key, the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute actually has this. And what we can do is copy it into Cleopatra. We can import this. Let's see here. well, actually, can't import this directly. I have to save it and then into a file and do that. But I can put it into there. So just one second. Import. Just one second. I'm going to go through Mailvelope to do this. Keyring. All right. Import from clipboard. Yeah, I wish Cleopatra had that capability. Confirm. And then what I'm going to do is just export his key. Save. And I'll save that to desktop. Okay. All right. All right. We'll share screen again. Present. Wow. And I'll show you guys how to do that in a second. But all right. So if you go to Cleopatra, we click on import and Satoshi Nakamoto key. Yep. Certify this key. And it wants me to sign it. I'm not going to sign it. Certificates. Here we go. And I say change certificate trust. I believe the checks are very accurate. All right. So this right here is Satoshi Nakamoto's key. Now, notice we only have the public key. Don't have the corresponding private key. So this is a publicly accessible key. Anybody in the world can see it. It's not a particularly strong key, actually. And you'll notice the date that it was created. It was created on October 30th, day before Halloween, 2008 at 12:19 p.m. and associated with an anonymous email at GMX. Now, if anybody wants to claim to be Satoshi Nakamoto, all they would have to do and produce quite a bit of evidence for it is they could have the corresponding private key, click here on Notepad, and type in something like, I am Satoshi. And then just click sign like that, and it would generate a proof. Now, I don't have the corresponding private key, so can't generate that proof. But you'll notice that once they do that, anybody who has the corresponding public key can actually just click that button, decrypt and verify. And I don't care if you have AGI or a quantum computer or all this stuff. For the most part, this is a pretty secure scheme. If you do have a quantum computer, there's some things we can do to enhance this. We just use different public key cryptography, like lattice-based crypto, and it'll still be able to generate signatures that we can verify even if you had a quantum computer. But this is a basic construction of the scheme. And if I ever cold call somebody out of the blue, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send them a signed email or a signed message. So if I ping you and you say, I don't believe it's really Charles Hoskinson, say, okay, well, I'll sign a message to you with my Gmail and my Gmail key. And then you can verify that that message is correct if you have an application like Cleopatra. Now, there's a natural question asked, like, where can I go to actually find Charles's key? You can find my fingerprint on my Twitter feed, but if you actually go to, and this explains public key fingerprints and how they were derived. I was supposed to talk about that. But if you go to keys.opengpg, you can just search my email address, and there is a copy of my public key. And you can download that. And I'd highly recommend you actually get an application called Mailvelope. And Mailvelope is a browser extension. It's free to use. It works in most modern browsers. And this is what it looks like. And basically, you can create a key ring, encrypt files, you can do all kinds of things, and it actually can automatically encrypt and decrypt emails that you send through Gmail or other services. But you can just import the key into that. It also has a clipboard for importing, so you can actually import Nakamoto's key if you so desire. But basically, you can always get my key there. You can always download Cleopatra and use that software, and you can always verify. Now, in practice, most people aren't going to do that. But just asking for that type of authentication is probably enough to dissuade a scammer, because the scammer is not going to know how to sign a PGP message more often than not. And even if they can, they're not going to be able to actually authenticate a message with me. This is the whole Craig Wright issue. If Craig was really Satoshi Nakamoto, the Occam's razor is just to simply sign a message with the original Satoshi key, which he certainly would have access to if he was Satoshi Nakamoto. You just saw that I signed a message with my key, and I was able to verify a message. And if he was willing to sign with that key, we could all verify together that message, with Cleopatra or other software like Mailvelope. But the fact that that doesn't exist is a pretty interesting thing. Now, one of the things we're going to do with the evolution of LACE, and let's talk a little bit about LACE, is we're going to integrate an identity center into LACE that takes advantage of Prism. Prism is our identity framework. So we go up a step, and we have this thing called a DID, and here's the DID standard. So you have a DID method, an identifier. But basically, you create an identifier, and then you can associate that with an arbitrarily long document. It's typically formatted in JSON. And that also can contain your public keys and other references to that. Well, we built a whole framework. It's actually on Hyperledger now. And that framework is going to get integrated pretty deeply into LACE through an identity center. And the very first use case that I'd like to see is a paper wallet generator. Okay, and a paper wallet generator is something that really just solves a lot of problems for people. So when you create a wallet, you also have a backup of that wallet to restore, and that backup typically has 24 keywords. I believe this is the old BIP39 standard from way back in the day. Okay, and that's what we typically do. And what you're told is to write those down. All right, so what people will do is they'll take those keywords and maybe write them on a piece of paper and put in a safe or something like that. What if instead you could generate a PDF, and that PDF can have a public QR code, and it can have a private QR code, and then you can just save that PDF or print it. But with that private QR code, that is encrypted with your PGP key. How about that? Well, if we have DIDs, DIDs can have an associated cryptographic credential, so you can associate a PGP key and even manage that with a piece of hardware, like a YubiKey, for example, or however you manage that. So all LACE would need is a copy of your public key. So this means you could even generate a wallet for somebody else. It would encrypt that, generate the PDF, and that PDF can only be decrypted by the person who owns the corresponding private key. So private QR code, you encrypt it, and then you get these two codes. And all you got to do to restore your wallet is scan the private key and decrypt. So in practice, you'd hold it up to your webcam or phone. Then you would authenticate with your PGP key. It would decrypt it. It would have those 24 keywords and regenerate the wallet. So paper wallet generator is something that's near and dear to my heart. And it's something that if you have a PGP key in an identity center, so you have a DID with an associate key, you basically just upload that. And every time you go to back up your wallet, you can back up either with a password, which would encrypt this, or you could back up with public key encrypting it. Now, this is so secure that I could publicly publish the paper wallet. And I could tweet it and say, if you can hack it, you can keep it. And so when we create this feature, whenever we get this feature done, I'm going to have a contest where I'm going to go ahead and put $1 million worth of ADA on paper wallet generated this way. And I'm going to tweet a link for you guys to be able to download it. And anybody in the world can try to crack it. And if they can crack it, they can keep it. How about that? Because that's how secure public key cryptography is. Why is this a sane idea? Well, that's an encrypted payload. And the only way you're going to be able to decrypt that payload is if you have an ability to solve this hard problem, because basically the only information you have is the corresponding public stuff, but you don't actually have the private stuff. And the basis of all internet cryptography is here. So that's actually a pretty secure scheme under the hood. It's very, very powerful. And this is what you get with these types of things. Well, once we have your identity inside the system, then also we can make this entire workflow of authenticating messages, signing messages, authenticating channels very simple. Like, for example, let's talk about deepfakes. So let's say somebody video calls you and that person says, "Hey, I'm Charles, and it looks like me and sounds like me." You say, "I don't really trust that you're Charles Hoskinson. Hey, can we authenticate this channel?" So by default, let's say that from a text viewpoint, it appears that it's Charles in the video channel and there's a red window around it because it's unauthenticated. So the question is, what does it take to get to the green window? Well, remember that challenge response protocol? You can send a nonce, just like Alice did, and say, "Hey, I've encrypted this. Go ahead and decrypt this and send it back to me over the channel." Well, the only way they can do that is if they have the corresponding DID, private key associated with that DID of me that you've saved inside your thing. And in practice, it could just be a click of a button as a browser extension. And you click it, and now we have an authenticated channel. And it works in the other direction as well. Alice can authenticate to Charles, me. Okay, so one-click authentication, and this guarantees that that's not a generated AI video. It's the same for file generation. When you generate a file, any file, because any file can be hashed, any file can be signed in the payload. So you start from building blocks and get an identity center into the wallet. You have your DID inside there, and you can associate PGP key or any arbitrary cryptographic credential. And then once you have that, you can generate paper wallets. But then you can start authenticating video calls, authenticating files, all kinds of things. So authenticated pairings is a killer feature. Age of generative AI, it's super important, but it's based on this standard foundations of public key cryptography, which has been around since 1991. Fast and easy to go from a private key to a public key. Hard in terms of all the time in the universe it takes to go from a public key to a private key. And if that wasn't true, then when we take a look at Satoshi's key, there we go, details, there we go, this key right here, then we should easily be able to go, and I guarantee you Craig would have done that. It's not possible right now, although it's getting eerily close with 1K RSA keys. It's not possible right now to go from public key to private key. You just can't. So, and then you can easily authenticate. And unfortunately, we don't have the corresponding key, so we can't sign that "I am Satoshi" message. So I hope that helps a little bit, and I hope it gives you guys a deeper understanding, or at least a taste of how rich cryptography is. Cryptography is so good because it gives you the ability to authenticate people. It gives you the ability to create what's called non-repudiation, message integrity, gives you the ability to make sure that the channels that you're dealing with are secure, and it can lock and secure your funds. Paper wallet generator is a long overdue thing, and it blows my mind that nobody in the industry has created this, because at the end of the day, when we print a paper wallet, there's a very insidious attack called a replay attack, where basically once you've created a paper wallet and you print it, a person who has access to the printer can just simply go through the buffer in the printer and reprint it, in which case they have access to it. When you encrypt your ability to recover, then that paper wallet is unhackable. If somebody finds the piece of paper, they're not capable of being able to decrypt it. You can also safely store your paper wallets in email as well with a scheme like this, because it's equivalent to a PGP encrypted email. In practice, no hacker is going to be able to get that. So you can hack it, you can keep it. I really like that. But authenticated channels, all these other things. I will never contact you asking you for ADA. I'm never going to tell you there's a giveaway, no matter how many times the internet tries to convince you of that. And at the end of the day, if I do have some reason to reach out to you, I am, as you can see, very comfortable using the magic of cryptography to do so. I have many means to authenticate myself, and there's a very deep rabbit hole for authentication. But that's why I have the PGP fingerprint in my Twitter header. It's why I submitted my keys to openpgp.org. It's why we have all these different channels. They exist. Blockchains are the perfect key servers. They're purpose-built for this type of stuff. They're great for certificates. They're great for key servers. In fact, in the very early days of Bitcoin, there was something called Namecoin for specifically that purpose. And you'll see that there's numerous community projects where people are taking advantage of the fact that people are creating, using blockchains for a key store. So hopefully this gives you guys a greater sense of the magic and power of this industry and field. And again, I will never contact you over social media. It's just not going to happen. And I'm never going to ask you for ADA. And if anybody ever does, instantly ask them for a signature. And if they don't give it to you, send them a copy of this video and then ask, well, why did you tell me differently in a public channel? And of course, they'll give you some sob story. Oh, I don't have my key available. Unless I'm in a prison cell, I'm always going to have my key available. And I can't access my accounts without these types of things. The same things that give me the ability to access my accounts give me the ability to sign keys. So, it's just not true. It's not reality. Hope that helps everybody, and thanks for listening.